The morning sun cast long shadows across the dusty road as Ada carefully arranged the golden brown bean cakes on the wooden tray. Her mother, Mama Ada, stirred the palm oil in the large pot, the sweet aroma of freshly fried akara filling the air around their modest roadside stall. "Ada, make sure you arrange them well," Mama Ada called out, wiping sweat from her brow. "We need to sell everything today if we want to add to your school fund." Ada nodded, her eyes focused on the dream that kept her going: university education. Every morning, she and her mother would set up their stall at the busy intersection, hoping to catch the attention of passers-by and make enough money to survive another day. The familiar sound of a Keke Napap approaching made them both look up. Benedict, the cheerful tricycle driver, pulled up with his usual bright smile. "Good morning, Mama Ada." "Good morning, my beautiful Ada," he called out, his eyes twinkling with genuine affection. Ada rolled her eyes while her mother forced a polite smile. "Good morning, Benedict." "The usual?" "Yes, please. And maybe today Ada will finally agree to let me take her out for a proper meal," Benedict said hopefully, stepping down from his Keke. "Benedict, how many times do I have to tell you?" Ada snapped, her voice sharp with irritation. "I'm not interested in dating a Keke driver. I have bigger dreams than ending up with someone who can barely afford 3 square meals." Mama Ada chuckled, shaking her head. "My daughter is right, Benedict. She's going to university soon, and she needs a man who can match her ambition. Not someone who will drag her down to poverty." Benedict's smile faltered slightly, but he maintained his composure. "Ada, poverty is not a permanent condition. I may be a Keke driver today, but I have plans, I have dreams too." "Dreams don't pay bills," Ada retorted, counting his change with obvious disdain. "Come back when you can afford to drive something better than that rickety tricycle." As Benedict drove away, his heart heavy but his determination unshaken, neither Ada nor her mother noticed the black SUV that had been observing their interaction from across the street. The next day brought an unexpected visitor to their stall. A sleek black car pulled up, and out stepped a well-dressed young man in expensive clothes. Ada's eyes widened as she took in his appearance: the crisp shirt, the polished shoes, the confident stride. "Good morning, ladies," the man said with a charming smile. "I'm Solomon. I heard you make the best bean cakes in this area." Mama Ada practically beamed, immediately straightening her wrapper and adjusting her head tie. "Oh yes, sir. We make the finest akara in all of Lagos." "Ada, serve this gentleman properly." Ada felt her heart skip a beat as Solomon's eyes met hers. Here was the kind of man she had been dreaming about: wealthy, sophisticated, and clearly interested in her. "How much for 10 pieces?" Solomon asked, pulling out a thick wad of cash. "Just 500 naira, sir," Ada said, her voice suddenly soft and sweet, a stark contrast to how she had spoken to Benedict just the day before. Solomon peeled off a 1,000 naira note. "Keep the change, beautiful. And please, call me Solomon. I have a feeling we'll be seeing a lot of each other." As he drove away in his expensive car, Ada couldn't contain her excitement. "Mama, did you see that? A real gentleman. Not like that poverty-stricken Benedict." Mama Ada nodded approvingly. "Now that's the kind of man you should be thinking about, my daughter. Someone who can take care of you properly." What they didn't know was that Solomon had parked the car around the corner, where his boss, Mr. Osers, was waiting with a stern expression. "Solomon, where did you go with my car?" Mr. Osers demanded. "Sorry, sir. I just needed to handle something quickly," Solomon stammered, his confident demeanor crumbling. "Handle something? You're my driver, not a businessman. Get in the back seat. I'll drive myself to the meeting." Over the following weeks, Solomon became a regular at the stall, always arriving in different expensive cars, always flashing money, always showering Ada with attention and gifts. He spun elaborate stories about his business empire, his properties in different states, his international connections. "I'm actually based in Abuja," he told Ada one evening as they sat in a fancy restaurant. "I just came to Lagos for some business deals. That's why I'm staying with my business partner instead of getting my own place." Ada hung on his every word, her eyes shining with admiration. "You're so successful, Solomon. I'm so lucky to have met you." Meanwhile, Benedict continued to patronize their stall, enduring Ada's insults and her mother's dismissive comments. He watched with growing concern as Ada became more and more entangled with the mysterious Solomon. "Ada, are you sure you know this man well enough?" Benedict asked one morning, genuinely worried. "Mind your business, Benedict," Ada snapped. "At least my man can afford to take me to proper restaurants, not like someone who can only offer me a ride in a Keke." Benedict shook his head sadly. "Ada, money isn't everything. Character matters more than." "Character doesn't pay school fees," Ada interrupted. "Speaking of which, I won't be selling Akara much longer. Solomon is enrolling me in university next month." True to his word, Solomon had scraped together money from his salary, borrowed from friends, and even took loans he couldn't afford, all to impress Ada. He paid for her admission into a state university, gave her mother money to expand the business, and showered Ada with gifts. But the facade was becoming harder to maintain. Solomon lived in a cramped room in a face-me-I-face-you compound, worked as a driver for long hours, and was accumulating debt faster than he could manage. Still, he persisted, driven by his genuine feelings for Ada and his desperate need to maintain the lie. At the university, Ada quickly adapted to her new environment, constantly boasting about her wealthy boyfriend to anyone who would listen. She made friends easily, particularly with Miriam, a quiet but well-dressed girl who seemed to come from money. "You're always talking about this mysterious boyfriend," Miriam teased one day as they walked across campus. "When do we get to meet him?" "He's very busy with his business empire," Ada replied proudly. "He's not the type to show off. He's very low-key." "Low-key? Or maybe he has someone else?" Miriam suggested playfully. "My man is not cheating," Ada defended, almost taking offense. "He's too rich and busy for that. He barely has time for me as it is." "Then let me see him," Miriam demanded jokingly. "So you can snatch him with that big waist of yours." Ada laughed, and they both dissolved into giggles. What Ada didn't know was that Miriam was observing her friend's relationship with growing interest. As the daughter of a wealthy businessman, Miriam had seen enough fake relationships to recognize the signs. Back in Lagos, Solomon's situation was becoming increasingly desperate. The car he had been using belonged to his boss, and he was running out of excuses for why he needed it so frequently. His debts were mounting, and some of his creditors were beginning to make threats. But the hardest part was maintaining the emotional facade. Solomon had genuinely fallen in love with Ada, but he knew that his entire relationship was built on lies, and he had to keep it up, else she might likely leave him for a richer man. Every gift he gave her, every promise he made, was pushing him deeper into financial ruin. As Ada's final year approached, she began pressuring Solomon about marriage. During one of their phone conversations, she was more direct than ever. "Solomon, we've been together for 4 years now. When are you going to marry me? My mother is asking questions, and I'm not getting any younger." Solomon's heart raced. "Ada, my love, you know I want to marry you. But I'm in the middle of some very important business deals. Once I wrap up this project in Abuja, we can start planning our wedding." "You've been saying that for months," Ada complained. "Every time I bring up marriage, you have another deal to complete. I promise you, Ada. Just give me a few more months. I want to make sure I can give you the wedding of your dreams." Ada smiled, satisfied for the moment. "You better, because Mama is already planning how many grandchildren she wants." After the call, Solomon sat in his small room, staring at the bills piling up on his table. He had borrowed from everyone he knew, maxed out every credit line available to him, and still he needed more money to maintain the charade. His phone buzzed with a text from his boss. "Solomon, I need the car back immediately from the mechanic now. I have an important meeting." Solomon's hands shook as he typed back, "Yes, sir. Bringing it right away." Despite all the challenges, Solomon managed to attend Ada's graduation ceremony. He had borrowed an expensive suit and arrived in yet another borrowed car, beaming with pride as Ada walked across the stage. "I'm so proud of you, my darling," he whispered as they embraced after the ceremony. "I couldn't have done it without you," Ada replied, tears of joy in her eyes. That evening, in a moment of desperation and genuine love, Solomon proposed to Ada with a ring he had bought with money borrowed from a loan shark. Ada said yes, and they immediately began planning their wedding. Miriam had traveled abroad for her master's degree and couldn't attend the wedding, but she sent her congratulations along with a nagging feeling that something wasn't quite right about her friend's relationship. The wedding planning became Solomon's nightmare. Ada insisted on the most expensive venue, the most elaborate decorations, the finest catering. She wanted a wedding that would make everyone jealous, a ceremony that would cement her status as the wife of a wealthy man. "Solomon, I want everyone to know that I married well," Ada declared as they toured another expensive venue. "I don't want anything cheap or ordinary." Solomon nodded, calculating in his head how much more money he would need to borrow. He had already approached everyone he knew, including some very dangerous people. The wedding day arrived with all the pomp and circumstance Ada had demanded. The venue was decorated with the finest flowers, the catering was exquisite, and Ada looked stunning in her expensive wedding dress. Mama Ada couldn't contain her pride as she received congratulations from everyone in attendance. She had even been given a special title in her women's group, the mother-in-law of a wealthy man. "My daughter has married well," she boasted to anyone who would listen. Her husband spent millions on this wedding. Millions. Ada was in her element, floating from table to table, basking in the admiration and envy of the guests. "Did you see the size of the diamond in my ring?" she whispered to her former classmates. "Solomon spares no expense when it comes to me." But Solomon was a nervous wreck. The wedding had cost him more than he could ever hope to repay, and he knew that the bills would start coming due soon. That night, as they settled into their honeymoon suite, Solomon's phone began ringing incessantly. Each call sent a spike of anxiety through his chest. "Who keeps calling you?" Ada asked, irritated that their intimate moment was being interrupted. "It's my business partners," Solomon lied, his hands shaking as he declined another call. "They're calling to congratulate me and discuss some urgent deals." But the calls weren't from business partners. They were from angry creditors, some of whom had already begun making threats. And one call was from Blessing, a woman from his village who had been trying to reach him for months. In the weeks following the wedding, Ada began to notice changes in Solomon's behavior. The man who had once showered her with gifts and expensive dinners now seemed stressed and distant. He was giving her less money for household expenses, and his explanations about temporary cash flow issues were becoming more frequent. "Solomon, what's happening to us?" Ada asked one evening as they sat in their modest apartment, a far cry from the mansion Solomon had claimed to own. "What do you mean?" Solomon replied, avoiding her eyes. "You're different. You're not the same man I married. Where are all the business deals? Where is the money?" Solomon's temper flared. "Maybe if you spent less time bragging and more time looking for a job, we wouldn't be in this situation." Ada was shocked. "A job? I'm a rich man's wife. I don't need to work. I'm a housewife, and that's how it should be. You better get your life together. I don't know what you're doing." "Rich man's wife indeed." Solomon laughed bitterly. "I don't blame you, spoilt greedy brat that I picked up from the roadside gutter. Without me you'd be selling that tasteless bean cake with your mother with K-legs going from our bar to Onitsha. You've not even seen anything yet." He fired behind her, not caring if she heard him or not. He was in so much mess to care. But Ada had already stormed into the bedroom, slamming the door behind her. She couldn't process what she had just heard. Her perfect life was crumbling, and she didn't know how to stop it. As the days passed by, Ada and Solomon had more chaotic days. They fought and quarreled over the slightest things. They were going so broke so fast. Well, that has been the reality, but Ada refused to take it all in or chose not to believe it. A few days later, Ada decided to visit Miriam, who had returned from abroad and was now engaged to be married. "Your house looks very familiar," Ada commented as Miriam led her into the living room. "Really? Well, lots of people have similar decorations," Miriam replied, trying to change the subject. "No, it looks exactly like my husband's house in his village. We're supposed to visit there this December." Miriam's heart skipped a beat, but she kept her voice casual. "That's strange. Speaking of your husband, how are you guys doing? How's married life? I'll be needing some tips soon." "Everything is perfect," Ada lied, not wanting to admit that her marriage was falling apart. "He even traveled yesterday on another business trip." "Wow, I'm so happy for you. I would have wanted to tap from your blessing, but my man is good too." They chatted for a while about Miriam's upcoming wedding plans, and eventually, Miriam suggested they go shopping for wedding dresses together. "My driver will take us to the boutique," Miriam said. "My fiancé is also coming along to pick up his suit." When they stepped outside, Ada's world came crashing down. Standing there in an oversized uniform, looking tired and defeated, was Solomon. "Jesus Christ!" Ada screamed, unable to believe her eyes. "Solomon, what are you doing here in that uniform?" The three of them stood frozen, each processing the shock of the moment. "Babe, I can explain," Solomon pleaded, his voice trembling. "What's going on here?" Miriam asked, though she was beginning to understand the situation. Ada couldn't process any more lies as embarrassment wore her abaya and oversized koi shoe. "That's my husband," Ada cried, pointing at Solomon. "What are you doing here dressed like a driver?" "Because I am a driver," Solomon admitted, his shoulders sagging in defeat. "I work for Miriam's family." Ada didn't know if she was pranked or something as she felt the rush of 1,000 emotions surge through her vein. "Tell me you're lying," she begged Solomon. Just then, an expensive car pulled into the driveway, and out stepped a handsome, well-dressed man. Ada's jaw dropped as she recognized him. It was Benedict, the Keke driver she had insulted and humiliated countless times. "Welcome, babe," Miriam said, running to embrace him. "I've missed you." "I missed you too, my baby," Benedict replied, kissing her tenderly. Ada stood there, her mouth agape, unable to process what she was seeing. "What's going on here?" Benedict asked, noticing the tension in the air. "This is my friend I've been telling you about," Miriam said, pointing to Ada. "Oh, the fake-ass liar?" Benedict asked nonchalantly, causing Miriam to nudge him to be quiet. "And him?" Benedict pointed to Solomon. "That's her beloved rich husband who happens to be our driver," Miriam replied, trying to suppress her laugh. Benedict burst into laughter. "Really?" Ada's face turned pale. "Miriam, so you brought me to your house to set me up, eh? You called me over to embarrass me. And to you," she turned to Benedict, "it's not about renting cars and borrowed clothes to come here to show off. We know you're still as broke as ever. God knows where you packed that ugly tricycle of yours." She turned to Miriam. "I know him, oh, he's a Keke rider, very broke and poor, don't let him deceive you." "Babe, did you hear that?" Benedict asked his fiancée, both of them laughing. Benedict straightened up and looked directly at Ada. "Let me introduce myself properly. I'm Benedict John, CEO of Benny Transport, the largest transport company in Nigeria. That Keke you saw me driving was a prototype I was testing before launching it to the market. I wanted to experience life as an ordinary person, to understand my customers better." Ada felt the ground spinning beneath her feet. "I genuinely liked you," Benedict continued, "thinking you were humble despite your circumstances. But you and your mother showed me your true colors. You humiliated me, insulted me, and made it clear that you only valued money over character. Including your fake life husband. God knew his intention, that's why he let you fall victim of his scam. I wish you all the best." Ada struggled to process the revelation. She couldn't speak. She kept blinking like a goat. Her life was over. She hasn't digested the fact she married a broke scumbag of a husband but had missed her chance of marrying the real deal, the CEO of Benny Transport. Which of her village people did she offend? But was that all? Suddenly car screeched into the compound. A young woman with a baby in her arms stormed out, accompanied by 2 hefty men. "That's him," she shouted, pointing at Solomon. "That's the man who destroyed my life." Solomon cowered in horror behind Ada, his face pale with terror. "What's happening?" Ada asked, her voice barely a whisper. "This man got me pregnant and promised to marry me 3 years ago," the woman, Blessing, explained. "He kept making excuses, kept postponing, while he was busy playing rich man with you. Meanwhile, his 2-year-old son has never received a kobo from his father." "Babe, calm down nah, we can talk this over," Solomon begged. "Babe?" Ada asked, horrified. "I'm sorry, Ada," Solomon whispered. "I was going to tell you. You have a child or you're married to someone else. Which one were you going to tell me?" Ada's voice cracked. "Let's go," Blessing said to the men. "When hand touch you finish today, you'd learn your lesson," she threatened Solomon as he was dragged out. As the men dragged Solomon away, Ada felt the world spinning around her. The shock of losing her supposed wealthy husband, discovering Benedict's true identity, and learning about Solomon's other family was too much for her to bear. Where had she gone wrong? She was just trying to escape poverty. She collapsed to the ground, and when she woke up hours later, she was in a hospital bed with her mother crying beside her. Ada tried to speak, but no words came out. The doctor explained that she had suffered a partial stroke due to the extreme shock and stress. Months later, Ada was slowly recovering her speech through therapy, but her life had changed forever. Solomon had been imprisoned after his creditors took everything he owned and destroyed his rented apartment. The landlord was demanding compensation for the damages, and Solomon's debts had multiplied beyond any hope of repayment. Ada's mother, Mama Ada, had been forced to return to selling bin cakes alone, her status as the mother-in-law of a wealthy man now a source of shame and embarrassment. The money Solomon had given her for the business had been borrowed, and the creditors had come to collect from her as well. "I should have listened to you about character," Ada whispered to Benedict during one of his visits. "I was so blinded by money and a good life that I couldn't see what was real. Please forgive me for the insults and humiliation." Benedict looked at her with a mixture of pity and understanding. "Ada, everyone deserves a second chance. But you have to learn that true wealth isn't about money. It's about the relationships you build, the integrity you maintain, and the love you give and receive." Years later, Ada had made a better recovery from her stroke and had learned to walk again, though she still struggled with her speech. She had gone back to school to start her master's and was working as a teacher in a local secondary school. She never married, but she had learned to find fulfillment in helping others and contributing to her community. Her mother, Mama Ada, had also learned from their experience and had become more humble and accepting of people regardless of their social status. Benedict and Miriam had a beautiful marriage and built a successful business empire together. They often visited Ada, not out of pity, but because they believed in forgiveness and second chances. Solomon remained in prison, serving time for fraud and defaulting on loans. His son with Blessing grew up without a father, but Blessing had found love with a man who accepted her and her child completely. The story of Ada and Solomon became a cautionary tale in their community about the dangers of valuing material wealth over character, and the importance of being honest in relationships. As Ada often told her students, true wealth isn't in your bank account, it's in your heart, your character, and the genuine relationships you build with others. Hope you learnt something from this story. Please join our cheap membership on YouTube. Your support means a lot to us. And do well to subscribe, like, comment and share.